I've been getting a lot of spam emails recently, and I've found a way of dealing with that, which is to
Oh,
sign all the
please.
spammers up to Eve Barlow's Substack.
How do you do it? How do you forward it to
Well, I
Substack?
guess, just manually do it. Like get the from bit and then just type it into Substack and sign them up for some absolutely
That's
insane
nasty.
rantings from the world's craziest Scottish woman.
Oh, she's Scottish. I didn't
She's
know
been
that.
on, yeah, she's been on some climate change denial stuff recently, which I thought was an interesting new string to her bow.
Yeah.
Yeah, some absolutely insane stuff comes out of her. Did you see the thing recently where she was talking about the new Gal Gadot film and why it flopped, and she was saying, Rachel Ziegler has, taken advantage of her Jewish-sounding name to get roles in Hollywood, and and now she's criticizing the state of Israel, and whatever, and everyone's like, oh, hold on, what the hell did you just say? This is like absolutely insane racist stuff that she's just peddling. Yeah.
It's class. I don't know. Like with the oil industry that you mentioned earlier, it's either like the first thing that gets you into being a regular talking head because their paychecks arrive like really really on time, or it's your off ramp when you're no longer relevant when it comes to whatever particular niche of right wing talking head propaganda you develop for yourself. Like I don't know. I can give you two direct examples of two dudes that have completely fallen off at this point. Like borderline, like I remember 2-3 years ago us talking about them as these like new knights of the far right digital sphere, and how they're gonna turn into massive 1-man or 5-man or 10-man corporations that are going to be the Fox News of the future. I was very guilty of it because there were like all the numbers were there. I'm talking Daily Wire with Ben Shapiro, and I'm talking Jordan Peterson, and in both cases, like Ben Shapiro's like a big part of his foundational money came from big oil, and then he expanded into all of the topics of the rainbow that he wanted to explore. While Jordan Peterson is right now doing the opposite, right? Because he can no longer target an audience that is that at this point just wants you to Zeke Heil and tell them that women deserve to be beaten. So they basically Andrew Tate took all of his shit, and now Andrew Tate's becoming old, blah, blah, blah. But my main point is Ben Shapiro is an example of starting out with oil money to an extent, right? At least Daily Wire is. While Jordan Peterson is now offloading with oil money. But it's interesting how there's always oil money in every type of conversation that is connected to agitating for a political idea of constant stagnation. And the status quo being propped up as much as quote unquote possible. But yeah, the fall offs have been interesting, and I think you're a great person to talk to about that, Alan, because like you've been with us literally from the get go. So what are some of like, let's say, what are some of the most disappointing and in contrast, the most surprising villain arcs that you've seen in the last like half a decade? What I mean by that is like, who did you think that was like, okay, this guy is an institution, like this ain't gonna move, and they ended up swallowing the big one, and vice versa, somebody who really really surprised you, or maybe nobody surprised you because you're brilliant. You're allowed to say that one.
No, I've already got one figure for each. What about Russell Brand for the career arc? I mean, if you think about this guy 10, 12 years ago, he was like a revolutionary socialist talking about how we need massive redistribution of wealth, going on platforms and talking about how we need a revolution, writing books about it, talking about communism, promoting people like Che Guevara, people like Noam Chomsky, etc., and getting so many people into politics that way. And to see where he's gone now, where he's, headlining Turning Point USA, conventions and the Republican National Convention, and sharing a stage with people like Nigel Farage, that was a real surprise to me anyway. And the opposite of Russell Brand, I think, would be someone like Greta Thunberg, who kind of came on the scene as a child, right? And you think, oh, she's got good politics, she wants to save the world, etc. And you saw how all of these like elite media figures and political figures tried to groom her into a sort of Davos set kind of person. And she was even invited there, and she just didn't take the bait. Every time she went there, she was like, you personally, you people are destroying the world, and you are the enemy. And now she's, sailing to Gaza and getting herself arrested and abducted by the IDF and denounced by all of these, talking heads at the Atlantic or whatever. So I think, the kid's all right in that case.
Mm-hmm.
Incredibly all right, beyond impressive, and completely hit the nail on the head, as the Americans say, because I really did not see that, let's call it, pipeline of
no,
because everything was there for her to sell out and live like literally the life of a multi-millionaire, and just go give random speeches like other 300 environmentalists, which we like to call gardeners here, because environmentalism without a class underpinning is literally gardening. So for her to have the audacity to and the courage and basically the lack of greed to go down their path, or maybe from the opposite perspective, such strong principles gets me hope-pilled every time. So yeah, the kids will indeed be all right.
Someone who was doing that whole, series that you were talking about, just talking about the climate and giving, really bland speeches for years and years about the climate, but not actually touching on anything important. Ghislaine Maxwell was someone who used to do that. She had her own climate charity for years,
It's bizarre.
It's whitewashing is so easy, and especially, we will go through a lot of brilliant articles that you wrote in the past month and a half that touch on this as well. But when it comes to the upper stratas of society, for you to whitewash or clean your hands of any greater corporate exploitation in the eyes of other people in the upper strata is literally, like, to me, like adding a tag to your name on Discord, but you got to spend $1 million on it, right? Like, you just open a thing, an NGO, a whatever, so you can say that you have one, funnel a certain amount of your money into it, and you get the tagline on Discord. Or in their case, you get to say you did it after an insane children inclusive orgy, right? Like, and you can tap yourself on the back and you can be like, oh my God, I'm actually good, etc., etc. But it's and there's a whole industry that, to an extent, like, obviously I don't respect, but I can see the grift. There's a whole industry of basically dudes that understand the logistics of developing an NGO or a climate advocacy or a gender advocacy or whatever advocacy type of thing, that are just standing there like foot soldiers waiting for some rich guy to want to create an institution such as that, and they have all the logistics, everything in place so they can create it, and the guy just ends up funneling money as like a executive leader of the particular NGO or whatever, and just be like the middleman and make his money that way. It's interesting how like hierarchies arise inside of every single industry, or in this case non-industry. Like, just, it's a con, but the con still has to be filled with like 30 bullshit jobs, and there's dudes that have hyper focused on filling those particular bullshit jobs. Usually, I don't know, dudes with masters in this or that accreditation from some fancy university who get hired literally because that institution will be called legitimate because that type of person is there. So yeah, whitewashing in every way possible. Please
imagine being a middle manager in Ghislaine Maxwell's climate NGO. That would have been insane.
You get bonus, yearly bonus is, I can't even say it.
You get the Chuck E. Cheese tokens to spend at the island. Yeah.
Well. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to yet another episode of the Deprogram. We're joined by the man, the myth, the legend, the returning heavyweight champion, the brilliant Mr. Allen, with a last name that I refuse to this day to pronounce. Brilliant journalist, published author, and hunter of the world's most blatant attempts at consent manufacturing. It's a pleasure to have you here again, my friend. Please tell those in our audience who might not know you who you are, what you do, and how to pronounce your last name. That's the longest running bit. Remember, this is a bit from the first time we met. Sorry, please.
What's up, guys? I'm Alan Macleod. I'm a journalist over at mintpressnews.com. You can find me on Instagram, on Twitter, everywhere. And basically what I write about is the intersection of power, state power, corporate power, anything like that interests me, and I try and undermine it. And I'm very, very much online as well. So you can find me on various social media platforms dunking on the rich and powerful 24/7. And of course, my surname is Macleod.
Beautiful.
Like Fox.
Exactly like Fox.
Oh, that took me a second to get. Alan is actually a pristine shitposter. I wouldn't even call it shitposting. Alan has developed his own subgenre that unironically did not exist before him, where he basically shows the consent manufacturing being done by titles and journalistic puff pieces that are so obviously one-sided, biased, and are trying to put across a particular ideological standpoint, let's call it, that it's so mind-blowing that he has to show it, and he has a massive collection. But on the other side, from his digital presence, where it's not only that, of course, he is a brilliant journalist that I believe genuinely absolutely everybody listening to us should check out. He also runs a audio podcast show that you guys should also check out. And most importantly, he actually posts. I really wanted to say this because, sometimes we bring on people, brilliant, smart, but they write fucking 2 articles every 3 years, right? Alan is incredibly consistent and is covering things that are in the now, right? It's not an overly academic piece about something that happened in 1978, unless it directly relates to a contemporary figure. So if you want to keep up to date, be informed to the most critical lens possible, while also being class conscious, Alan is your guy. And now with that, I will stop slobbering your knob, basically what people call the 4th honorary guest of the show. Let's start with your first article of the day. The CIA, Mossad, and Epstein unraveling the intelligence ties of the Maxwell family. Your article outlines Robert Maxwell's alleged ties to both British and Israeli intelligence. This, for those who do not know, is the father of the currently most famous Maxwell. From your research, how credible do you think the evidence is for these connections? And how have mainstream outlets chosen to cover or ignore this aspect of his legacy?
Yeah, I mean, let's say who Robert Maxwell is. He is Ghislaine Maxwell's father, and that means Jeffrey Epstein's partner. And he was the founder of a vast media and tech empire, which employed more than 16,000 people. So think Rupert Murdoch meets Bill Gates, but somehow less likable than either of those guys. For Robert Maxwell, anyway, I think the evidence of his involvement with intelligence is overwhelming. I mean, that guy has been connected to the Israeli state before there was even an Israeli state. He was a Jewish refugee from Czechoslovakia who fled to the UK and then fought for Britain against Germany. During World War II, his language skills came in importance, and he landed himself a job in British intelligence. And then after the war, he used his Czech connections to buy and funnel weapons to militia forces that would later become the IDF. These militias were terrorist groups like the Haganah, who used Maxwell's weapons to carry out the Nakba, which was the genocide of 750,000 Palestinians in 1948. Maxwell's media empire and his just enormous connections gave him so many he just had so many connections to everyone in high politics. He was, for example, elected an MP in the 1960s and 1970s in the UK. He counted Henry Kissinger and everyone's least favorite Soviet premier, Mikhail Gorbachev, as among his closest friends. I like to think of him, Maxwell, Gorby, and Kissinger all sharing an extra hot and spicy Pizza Hut pizza in hell right now. Maxwell definitely worked with the Mossad, Israeli intelligence, to sell surveillance software around the world to police, to intelligence agencies, and to governments. Unbeknownst to them, however, this software had a secret Israeli backdoor allowing Tel Aviv to tap into classified information gathered by governments around the world. He also worked with the Israeli embassy to help them kidnap and capture Israeli nuclear weapons whistleblower Mordecai Vanunu. As everyone knows, Israel has a shit ton of nuclear missiles, but pretends it doesn't. Vanunu went to the British press in 1986 with evidence of this, and Maxwell helped track his whereabouts for the Israeli government, leading to his abduction. But probably, I would say, the strongest evidence for Maxwell's connections to intelligence was what happened just after he died. He actually died in very suspicious circumstances, apparently just falling off his luxury yacht in the Mediterranean. Near Tenerife, actually. Never to be seen again. His own children don't really believe that this was an accident, but that's another story. Anyway, his body was recovered, and it was immediately flown in a private jet to Israel, where it was buried at the Mount of Olives, which is probably the most sacred site in Judaism. It's the place where Jesus is supposed to have ascended to heaven from. So that's a pretty enormous honor to be given. And it's usually only given to heads of state and very important people and the like. And at the funeral, basically the entirety of Israeli political society attended it, including all 6 former and current heads of the Mossad. The president of Israel that performed the eulogy and the prime minister spoke at the funeral as well. It was Yitzhak.
Fucking insane.
Was it Yitzhak Shamir or Yitzhak Rabin? I'm always forgetting which Yitzhak it was. But anyway, one of the Yitzhaks said something like, and I'm paraphrasing here, "The world will never know how much Maxwell did for Israel."
Jesus Christ.
So, after his death, a book came out called Robert Maxwell, Israeli Super Spy. And even before it was published, Isabel Maxwell, his daughter and Ghislaine's sister, obtained a copy of the manuscript somehow and immediately flew to Israel to meet what the Times of London at the time called a close family friend. That close family friend was David Kimchi, the deputy director of the Mossad, which is not exactly the sort of thing that dampens rumors about your connections to the state of Israel, right? It's like my not involved with the Mossad t-shirt has a lot of people asking questions already answered by my t-shirt, you know?
Fantastic. It just the scope, that's what surprised me the most, because like it's one thing for your dad to have been involved in intelligence agency work, or to have been a soldier, or even like, I don't know, a colonel or a major or whatever. We are talking about someone who was involved in some of the most historically important moments for the settler colonial project of Israel, right? Someone who was fucking on this funeral, the fucking leader of the country was reading out his goddamn eulogy, right? So being raised in an environment with direct connection to someone like that, and indirectly or directly, I mean, we can debate this for hours, but there is no way you are raised by someone like Maxwell's father without having been introduced to every strata of the main leaders from behind the scenes, let's call it that, of Israel proper, and maybe other intelligence agencies throughout the world. So to believe there is no connection, or that she did not utilize her now passed away father's immense power would be silly. Like then I have a bridge in San Francisco to sell you. But to continue, you suggest that the Maxwell family's influence extends also across media, intelligence, and tech sectors. How coordinated do you think this influence actually was, and to what extent might it have been shaped by state actors like Mossad and the CIA that we mentioned earlier?
Yeah, I mean, when it was Robert running the ship, it was really a very well coordinated engine. He was known as a tyrannical boss who meddled in everyone's work. But when he died, the business empire kind of fell apart, and it was left to his children to pick up the pieces. His daughters, especially Isabel and Christine Maxwell, went into the world of tech, which, as you may know, was dominated by the US national security state in the early days. The internet is a creation of the US military, and for the use of surveillance, the CIA and NSA literally funded Sergey Brin's research that would lead to Google, and the CIA even oversaw the evolution of Google in its early days. They even had shares in Google until 2005, but that's another story. Anyway, Yeah, actually, talking of search engines, the internet's first engine wasn't actually Google. Do any of you know what it was?
I shouldn't I? But no, sir,
It
no.
was Magellan, or as you Americans insist on calling it, JT, Magellan.
Correctly.
Anyway, Magellan was created by Isabel and Christine Maxwell. They sold the project in the 1990s, netting them a fortune. And from then on, Isabel, who was a millionaire by this time, of course, decided she would dedicate her life to advancing the cause of Israel in Silicon Valley, declaring that she would, and I'm quoting here, work only on things involving Israel as I believe in Israel, end quote.
Wow.
She became a liaison between Silicon Valley and Israel, constantly traveling back and forth between the two. She was and is close personal friends with Israeli prime ministers like Ehud Olmert and Ehud Barak, who you might remember made more than 30 trips to Jeffrey Epstein's New York mansion as well. She was on the board of the Israeli government-funded Shimon Peres Center for Peace and Innovation, and also the American Friends of the Yitzhak Rabin Center for Israel Studies, which means that her work was directly financed by the Israeli government. After they sold Magellan, I'll say it right, Christine developed spying software that she sold to the FBI for uses of counterterrorism. The FBI used this stuff during the first Bush administration to crack down on Muslims nationwide, surveilling and harassing them. And a lot of people have commented that this software actually seems to look, on the surface anyway, an awful lot like the software that Robert Maxwell sold to spying agencies around the world in the 1980s. Software that, as I said, had an Israeli backdoor in it, but that's pretty much speculation. What isn't speculation, though, is how close Christine is to the state of Israel as well. She's currently on the board of the Institute for Study of Global Anti-Semitism and Policy. Also on that board are Natan Sharansky, who is the former Deputy Prime Minister of Israel, and of course, America's favorite lawyer, Alan Dershowitz, the dirtbag himself. So what that means, right, is that in her role at the Institute, Christine Maxwell is directly being funded by the government of Israel again. And this funding, by the way, wasn't disclosed and only came out after an investigation by Forward magazine. So it seems like they didn't really want anyone knowing about that funding. I should say something about Robert Maxwell's sons, Ian and Kevin. They weren't really as successful. In fact,
So Ian and Kevin are the two sons. Sorry for interrupting.
Yeah,
just so
that's
the
right.
audience gets it, even though it should read the fucking article. I'm looking at you. But yes, okay, those are the two sons. Okay, please
Yeah,
continue.
Robert had two sons as well, Ian and Kevin. They were not really as successful as Christine or Isabel. In fact, I would say they're basically both fail sons. Kevin, in particular, is most well known for being Britain's biggest ever bankrupt, defaulting on debts of over $500 million US.
What the fuck?
I mean, how do you lose $500 million? That is insane.
But still, even with that, there's such like main character syndrome. Like, you get what I mean? Like, even in their failure, they like the world's largest scandal right now, a Maxwell is involved. The founding of the state of Israel, a Maxwell was involved. Even the greatest fail son in the history of the UK, you said UK, right? Again, a Maxwell. It's like really main character syndrome, out of the fucking heli, you know? Sorry.
Yeah, well, they have been influential in their own right. I mean, in 2018, Ian and Kevin started a think tank called Combating Jihadist Terrorism and Extremism, or COJIT for short, which worked closely with other right-wing organisations in the UK to press the UK government to surveil and, frankly, harass the local Muslim population even more. Yeah. COJIT was pretty influential in the UK. I mean, at its first conference, for example, the Director General of MI5, which is Britain's CIA, headlined the event, which again begs the question of how connected is this family to intelligence. I mean, I could go into how Isabel's son was literally a high official at the State Department and crafted US policy towards Israel and Iran, or how Christine's son literally worked in the White House itself. But I feel like I'm going on a bit. You can just check out the article. As you said, it's called The CIA, Mossad and Epstein, Unraveling the Intelligence Ties of the Maxwell Family. But what I would say about the article is it's definitely not conspiratorial. What did Marx say about conspiracies or anti-Semitism being the socialism of fools? I mean, I'm only dealing in that article with really well-established, verifiable facts and don't really go in for innuendos or anything. And that's actually why I think Jeffrey Epstein's ties to Israel or US intelligence are actually less documented or established or proven than most of the Maxwell clans. So honestly, by way of answering your question, is this stuff shaped by intelligence or governments? I think, yeah, it surely is. But the Maxwell clan have their own motives and engines driving this story forward as well.
Beautifully put. My jaw kept dropping as I was reading through it, even as someone who believed was highly informed on the entirety of the Epstein scandal, but it very often, as you put as well, concentrated on Jeffrey and not the, let's say, his equally as beautiful other side. Let's call it that, because it's usually the fucking classic misogynist or prettier, but whatever. Now, to continue, you highlight how intelligence agencies, to continue on the path of talking about intelligence agencies, because I think it's the most important. You highlight how intelligence agencies use private actors and shadowy networks to advance their interests. What does the Maxwell case teach us about the blurred line between state power, organized crime, and elite wealth? I think you put it really well in the article, and I would like you to paraphrase one more time for the audience, I guess.
Sure. Well, I guess what I'd say is ultimately we live under the system of capitalism, unfortunately. And that means that, it's our realities, our lives, they're dominated by capitalists. And the more I research and write about these topics, the more it becomes clear that these oligarchs really shape societies, and it's a big club and we're not invited to it. Places like Silicon Valley are highly, highly incestuous. These guys all know each other, and the US State Department is also intimately involved, be that placing CIA agents into some of the most influential positions at Google and Facebook, or funding and helping research and businesses that will come to dominate the world market. I mean, if you look, for example, at the list of the richest Americans, the top 10, basically all of them have extremely close ties to US power. Elon Musk was in Donald Trump's cabinet, plus he's a massive Pentagon contractor. As we talked about in a previous episode, SpaceX is an integral part of the US surveillance state. Jeff Bezos and Bill Gates, Amazon and Microsoft have signed gigantic contracts with the CIA and with the US military, providing them with computing and digital services. Microsoft, for example, got a $22 billion contract from the US Army to make those augmented reality goggles, which apparently are going really, really badly. They're like the Google Glass for the military. They're just completely useless. But yeah, I mean, Larry Ellison, his company Oracle, is literally named after a CIA project he worked on. Larry and Sergey from Google, I mentioned earlier that a few of their ties to the CIA, but I would just say, if you think Google Earth and Google Maps, the technology that allows you to see your house or perhaps a foreign military barracks from above and from all angles was developed for civilian use, then I think you're quite naive. And yeah, the list goes on. So the line between big business and the state is really blurred under capitalism. And so much of my journalistic work over the past few years has been dedicated to highlighting how closely big tech and the US national security state works together, to the point where it's hard to tell where one ends and the other begins. And all these companies I've just talked about, Facebook, Google, Twitter, etc., all have quote-unquote former CIA agents overseeing their most politically sensitive departments, controlling the algorithms, influencing what the world sees and doesn't see in their news feeds and search bars. So yeah, the more I do this, the more I realize that I'm starting to think that basically every tragedy since 1945, be it wars, coups, famines, terror campaigns, or whatever, can so often be traced back to the CIA in Langley, Virginia. I mean, I'm sure you've had this experience. How often are you reading about some cool or revolutionary leader or movement in Africa or Latin America, and how they were couped, and then about 3/4 of the way down the Wikipedia article, there's the section called something like accusations of US involvement, and you're like, oh yeah, this is
yeah, there you go.
Right here. Yeah.
How do you, like, when you research and when you listen about the stories of just how deeply intertwined intelligence agencies are with whatever key sector of industry or media or whatever that plays out. When you realize just how intertwined they are and just how many aspects of its executive body and leadership and so on are very often directly or indirectly working for said intelligence agencies or different, State Department institutions, do you start developing kind of a supra class, let's call it, understanding of capitalist class society where there is something that can be called a deep state? Do you call it a deep state? Is it still, it still is a consequence of class society and capitalism as it is. But how do you reconcile the whole deep state conversation in your brain when you see so often so much proof of there being direct influence by quote unquote, if you want to call it shadowy groups or whatever, on the direction particular countries go in, or even domestic American industry and media goes in? How do you reconcile that? I don't know, because I can't.
Well, I guess the more I read about it or whatever, and I learn about this stuff, I think, aha, in my head, like a light bulb goes off, and I think, I've just proved that capitalism is even less democratic than I thought previously. So it's like, oh, there's another, check in the box, etc. Yeah, listen, society is dominated and it is also affected by government. That should be clear, but the more you read about it, the more you realize just how much of our realities is curated by government. And I don't really like the term, I do like the term deep state, but I don't use it because unfortunately it's been hijacked by people like Alex Jones and the far right, who have completely shit-coated this idea, which is unfortunate because it's a really good way of describing how parts of the government don't change whether they're voted in or, whether it's a red face in power or a blue, or not a red face, a guy with a red tie or a guy with a blue tie in power. There's the whole, there's the military, there's the media, there's the clergy, there's big business power, there's the civil service, etc., etc. All of these groups, doesn't matter who we elect, they still stay the same. And for a lot of that, these are the groups that actually control society and push it forward. So yeah, we understand this, we're taught to understand this about enemy nations like North Korea or the Soviet Union or whatever, but our own societies function in a very similar way to the way we were taught enemy societies function, actually.
Beautifully put. Agreed.
Yeah, and it's that's always been a good foot in the door that I've found, at least, when you're talking to, vaguely chuddy family members or the apolitical types where, it's interesting. It sounds conspiratorial, and if people they have a knee-jerk negative reaction to critiques of capitalism or a positive speech about, vaguely socialist ideas, you say, well, actually, you know what? You're right about the deep state. They are conspiring, and let me tell you more about that. Let's start in Chile, back in the day of Salvador, and so you can kind of weasel your way in with that. But yeah, it's a fascinating topic, and yeah, I like you said, every time you're reading about some cool historical event, you're like, yo, this was going so great. I wonder what happened. And sure enough, it's always the same story. But I guess let's move on to another one of your articles here. Unfortunately, in keeping with the Israeli angle here, Israel's biggest U.S. donor now owns CBS. So everyone knows, Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, Warren Buffett, and so on. These are some of the richest people on Earth. But I'm sure there are some in our audience who have never heard of the second richest person alive, and that's Larry Ellison. Ellison's son, David, just acquired Paramount Global, which is the massive media umbrella that owns CBS. So can you tell us a little bit more about who these Ellisons are and what this acquisition means?
Yeah, sure. Well, Larry Ellison is the world's second richest man, although, as you said, many people don't know who he is because he keeps quite a low profile. He is the founder and owner of Oracle, which is the fourth largest tech company in the world. Again, a lot of people haven't even heard of Oracle because it doesn't really sell its products to consumers. It actually mostly sells databases, management software, and cloud computing services to big businesses and to governments. Ellison and Oracle are the public-private facade of the CIA. I'll explain what I mean by that. Ellison worked for the CIA for a long time. In fact, the name Oracle refers to Project Oracle, which was a CIA operation in the 1970s that he worked on. And for the longest time, the CIA was Oracle's only customer until it began to bid for and win contracts with other military and other US government departments. Now, Ellison, or officially his son David, is buying Paramount, which, as he said, controls CBS. And this represents, for me, another point in the trend of billionaire ownership of our media. If you look at the list of the top 10 richest individuals in the United States, as I was saying before, they are connected to the US government, but almost all of them have also been buying up the means of communication or own big media outlets themselves. So you've got Elon Musk at Twitter, you've got Jeff Bezos, who owns the Washington Post and Twitch, you've got Larry Page and Sergey Brin of Google fame, Mark Zuckerberg, who controls Facebook, Instagram, and WhatsApp. And then there's Bill Gates, who's, according to my 2021 investigation, has spent over $319 million funding media. And this, for me, is all about controlling a narrative and limiting public discourse and discontent about them and about the system of capitalism that is making them fantastically criminally wealthy.
It's also, sorry for interrupting you, I feel like also buying a media house when you reach that amount of money, it's like, I don't know, somebody becoming a millionaire and needing to buy a Porsche 911. Like the cliche thing, like,
it's a rite of passage.
Are you really a millionaire without a Porsche 911 to have owned it at least once? It's the same with these borderline trillionaires at this point. Yeah, you don't own a media house? What are you, a fucking millionaire? Right,
Yeah.
Sorry for interrupting you.
Get a load of this guy. He only owns a newspaper. What a loser.
Yeah.
Apologies, please.
Yeah, I guess it's no secret that after Gates began donating money to the Seattle Times, it stopped reporting on his conflicts of interest. And Jeff Bezos, you might remember, recently came out and announced that he will no longer tolerate questioning of free market capitalism in the pages of the Washington Post, as if there was that much of that to begin with.
Yeah.
Ooh. As long as it doesn't come to Twitch as well, we are all scared. Okay?
Oh, God. I didn't know about the Twitch thing. This is news to me.
Oh no, Twitch it didn't. That's why if
No.
If
I didn't know that he owned it. This is when.
That's always the joke. Like, Jeff Bezos is my boss. That's what I always fuck around with. Like, all billionaires are bad except Jeff Bezos, who is actually amazing, and we really love him. Thank you for only taking 30% of what I make over on Twitch. That's a bit I do every like. We do not talk negative. All hail the bold king, Bezossi, the true Albanian overlord. I have a conspiracy that he's Albanian because of what he looks like and how he dresses. Come on, only an Albanian can pull that off. He kind of pulls it off. Please, we are derailing.
Alan's starting a new investigation right now.
Like, is he Albanian? And Alan would care, and I will not say why.
No, I'm just trying to remember. Was Jeff Bezos one of those Cuban babies who was like shipped away from Cuba because the CIA did that big thing where they said that the Cuban government's going to nationalize your babies? Am I remembering that right? Or was that his father?
I don't know.
Well, anyway, I'll just leave that out there.
We're eagerly looking forward to this new article.
Jeff Bezos, baby, where?
It's well known. You can probably just Google it. But, Well, I'll Google that later and cut it out if I'm wrong. But I guess what I was talking about was basically like the incredible concentration and amalgamation of business power, financial power, and media power. When people talk about the dangers of state media, they're right. But when you live in the corporate state, as we do, where big business dominates, corporate media is state media by definition, right? And making this whole thing worse is who the Ellisons have specifically brought into CBS to turn it into a more pro-Trump, pro-Israel network. That's because they are in negotiations to hire Barry Weiss as an internal ombudsman. And she will basically dictate the network's political direction. Now, if you don't know, Weiss is, frankly, a shameless propagandist who started her political career while still at college. She founded an organization that tried to get Arab professors fired over their lack of support for Israel. She then moved to Israel to work in media over there and came back and somehow landed the golden job as a New York Times columnist. She popularized the term intellectual dark web and worked hard to promote anti-woke thinkers like Ben Shapiro and Jordan Peterson and all, the cavalcade of freeze-dried ghouls who appear on Joe Rogan's podcast. So all in all, this is going to be a horrible move for anyone who cares about a free and open press. But I guess the counter to that is, well, CBS was kind of trash already, so maybe we're not losing too much to begin with. I don't know.
Yeah, good point. But you know, I'm sure I'm not the only one who hears stuff like this and goes slightly insane, because it seems like Israel, you know, there's this tiny, evil little fake country halfway around the world, has its intelligence and military fingers in like almost every aspect of American life. So if you would, please help us go a little bit more insane and tell us about the links between the Ellisons, Israel, and the CIA in a bit more detail.
Yeah, I mean, well, I guess I've already talked about the CIA specifically, but I'll address the Israel angle for sure. The Financial Times, for example, explicitly reported that Weiss is being considered for the job because of her pro-Israel stances. And that's not surprising, because Ellison is probably Israel's biggest fan in the United States. He's the IDF's largest donor. A lot of people don't know that the IDF is partially funded by international donors, a lot of which happens at big drives in Hollywood hosted by the likes of Gerard Butler or Pharrell Williams. Anyway, one day in 2017 alone, Ellison donated $16.6 million to the Friends of the IDF, which is a so-called charity which purchases equipment and supplies for the Israeli military.
But why does he give so much shit about Israel? Like, why this fucking little fucking whatever country?
Well,
why has he got such a hard-on for, you know?
Well, I mean, he stated that his life purpose is basically to support the Israeli projects. I mean, here's a quote from him from the article. Here we go. In my mind, there is no greater honor than supporting the bravest people in the world, and I thank the Friends of the IDF for allowing us to celebrate and support these soldiers year after year. We should all do what we can to show these heroic soldiers that they are not alone. So that's the quote from him. He appointed a CEO of Oracle that's Israeli. Her name's Safra Katz. And when Oracle employees began questioning the links between the company and the genocide, she told them that the whole purpose of Oracle was to support Israel. She said, "We are not flexible regarding our mission, and our commitment to Israel is second to none. Larry Ellison and I are publicly committed to Israel and devote personal time to the country," end quote. She said, basically telling employees who don't support Israel to just leave the company. Ellison is very close friends with Benjamin Netanyahu and has actually flied him out to his private island to vacation together. If that sounds quite Epsteinish, well, I'm afraid.
Yeah.
I mean, he even offered Netanyahu a seat on Oracle's board, replete with an annual salary of nearly $500,000. So, yeah, in summing up, bad guy, bad person, bad company.
Yeah.
But also sounds like sorry for interrupting, but semi sounds like a true believer to an extent in Zionism, in the cause.
That's what I was going to say.
Right?
Oh, 100%.
Sorry.
Yeah.
It's just bizarre. Like, I don't know. I mean, the Nazi comparisons are overplayed and stuff, but like, good God, like it doesn't take a genius or anyone particularly even up to date on what's going on to look at Israel and say, hey, that's kind of bad. That like at the very least, that is excessive what Israel does. But I don't know. You think, okay, if they're making a ton of money from some deal with Israel, okay, that makes sense, sure. If they're not, if they're instead giving enormous sums of money to Israel, why? Like I don't understand it. Like deep down, like on a human level, I'm like, it's not that convincing. To me, like maybe it is to other people, but it doesn't to me seem that convincing. I'm not sure.
It's like other than the class drive, obviously there are other drives even in the lives of billionaires and so on. Opa, it's okay. You good? Or it's just the mouse? Okay,
Sorry,
just the mouse. You're fine. Yeah. There's other drives, right? You have, I don't know, you have the Jeff Bezoses, which are extremely classic capitalists. They're in it to be number one, in it to accrue capital for the sake of capital. That's, for example, a soulless drone, even though he's my boss and he's phenomenal. Then you have Mark Zuckerberg, who to an extent does want to leave a legacy larger than social media site or and a place where you can text people and post pictures on, right? Like he obviously is in it for the money, but there is a sort of ego drive there pushing him to developing technologies that are not necessarily in any way linked to Facebook or what he calls Meta now, as a way to create greater legacy afterwards. So we have classic capitalist, money good Jeff Bezos. You have legacy capitalist Mark Zuckerberg, and obviously there are capitalists that are dedicated to particular, let's call it, national causes or political ideological movements. True believers. You have crazy fucking Christian ISIS dudes that fucking believe in hardcore ideology, hardcore strains of Christian belief, blah blah blah, that spend a lot of their money in order to push that particular rhetoric to more and more people. Or you have people that believe in Zionism in this particular case that will do whatever they can. I mean, half of the National Socialist movement in Germany was funded after they saw that it could potentially win by industrialists and billionaires that were genuinely anti-Semitic and that genuinely saw the potentially rising Third Reich ridding the world of an ethnicity and other ethnicities that they genuinely believed were inferior, etc., etc. So basically what I'm saying is, the way I explain it to myself is that billionaires, to an extent, no matter how much they try not to be, are to an extent humans too, and they also have non-exclusively materialist drivers for what they want to leave to quote unquote their children. So this freak is that with Zionism.
That's I think a perfectly accurate and reasonable way to look at it. I think in my cynicism, I assume anyone who is worth nearly $1 trillion doesn't genuinely believe anything, and obviously that can't be the case. They are at the end of the day human beings, like you said. That's true.
Except Jeff Bezos, who I genuinely think he's like a fucking, he's just like, money good. I go boat, very big boat. Look, woman, big boobs. I like very much money. Like it's that's why to an extent I respect him the most out of all of the categories. But then again, maybe he hides it the best. But let's
talking about Jeff Bezos, please. While you were talking, I did look it up and I was almost right. Jeff Bezos' dad was a victim of Operation Peter Pan. Do you guys know about Operation Peter Pan?
Is that like Baby Lift?
Well, what happened was, in the wake of the Cuban Revolution of 1959, the Cuban government sent all these people out to teach children and adults how to read and write, right? Yeah. And the CIA flooded Cuba with propaganda saying that actually Fidel Castro was going to nationalize everybody's children. And so what happened was 14,000 Cuban children were sent by their panicked parents on their own to the United States, where they were just thrown into adoption centers all over the country. And that, Jeff Bezos' dad was one of those people. So, when we were talking about all these evil things always having a root in the CIA, there's one more example.
There's another one.
Brilliant. I learned so much with you, Alan, every single time. And I learn even on topics that
you know where I found out that fact? Sorry to cut you off. Go. It's quite an interesting source where I found that out. I found that out from Pitbull.
Pitbull?
Of all the places.
Yeah.
Who looks identical, but because Pitbull is Jeff Bezos' brother from that father that came in from Cuba. You can't tell me that Pitbull and Jeff Bezos are not the same person. Okay.
No, there was a coup attempt in Cuba organized by the United States a few years ago, and Pitbull, who's a Cuban American, was trying to drum up support, and he was like, why isn't Jeff Bezos sending money to us? He's Cuban and he's this. And I'm like, really? I didn't know that. And I looked him up.
Wow.
That's where I found out.
The Pitbull to Gusano pipeline truly works.
It's real.
And as insane as that sounds, so does one of Alan's other incredibly fascinating articles titled "Gooning for Apartheid: How Israel Uses Sex to Whitewash Genocide." Now, as somebody who's extremely interested in the idea, and I tap myself on the back for at least on YouTube Spaces starting the fucking conversation, not on gooning, motherfucker, but on the utilization of social media and influencers, etc., etc., by the IDF in order to drum up both domestic and foreign support. Reading this article added a lot of very necessary, I feel like, nuance of just how directed the whole scenario and the whole game is. It's not as organic as I thought it would be, is what I'm saying. So let's start out properly and try to not lose our boomer listeners, all 12 of them that give us hundreds of thousands of dollars on Patreon, of course, and then the rest of the broke Zoomers just sit there listening to the show. The article links dating app Thirst Traps, featuring IDF soldiers, to an aggressive public relations push, complete with a reported PR budget jump to 150 fucking millis, okay? How effective do you assess this sexualized image campaign has been in countering international criticism of Israel and its current military actions?
Well, this is the 5th time I've been on this podcast, and it's the 2nd time you've asked me about gooning. So,
hell yeah, brother! I mean, you're right about gooning a lot, so like, it's not my fault.
You bring it on yourself.
We're the goon squad, I guess. Yeah,
100, bro.
Yeah. One way in which the Israeli government has tried to stem the tide of negative public sentiment against it is by officially promoting itself by just pushing thirst traps online. And it really has to be seen to believed. There are accounts called stuff like IDF Babes that will post pictures of Israeli women in uniform and then wearing basically nothing at all. And the intent is to get young men, especially, to associate Israel with sex, while slipping in not so subtle pro-apartheid or pro-Israel talking points. Now, while many of these accounts are privately owned, the practice is officially sanctioned by the Israeli government, who were actually the ones that came up with the idea in the first place. As a member of the Israeli consulate in New York told the BBC, and I'm quoting here, "Males that age have no feeling towards Israel one way or another, and we view that as a problem. So we came up with this idea that would be appealing to them," end quote. And some of this stuff appears in official partnerships with male magazines like Maxim, but other stuff is just posted to Instagram, Twitter, and beyond. And the stuff they post is unbelievable. I mean, even when they're reporting on the deaths of female soldiers or the killing of somebody at the Nova Music Festival, the pictures that sometimes even the Israeli government themselves and the language they use really beg her belief. Sometimes it'll be like, "Oh, beautiful Shani was only 20 she was only 20 when she was kidnapped from her tank by Hamas terrorists. May she rest in peace." But the picture will be like a back shot of her looking down, at the camera, and the finger on the lips, and like exposing her tramp stamp or something. Yeah. I saw one obituary published by the Times of Israel.
40 double D.
Yeah, I mean, it actually featured a picture of the woman. This is an obituary. She was wearing nothing but a bra, nothing else, and it's really confusing to me. Am I reading an obituary or choosing an OnlyFans account to subscribe to? Because I'm getting mixed signals here. What was your question? Oh yeah, how effective is it? I think it will have had some effect among young, extremely dumb, and politically naive males, especially. But beyond that, I mean, clearly Israel is losing the propaganda war. The vast majority of the world is sickened by its actions in Gaza and beyond, and public support for it has pretty much collapsed. I mean, even in Germany, where public support is highest, only 21% of the population as a whole hold favorable views of Israel, as opposed to 65% unfavorable. And 8 times as many Germans strongly dislike Israel as strongly like it. And yet Western countries continue to ban protests and jail demonstrators. And so that's one of the many casualties of this genocide, the myth that we live in a tolerant, democratic nation. Those rights are being taken away from us the minute we challenge the interests of the state, exposing capitalist democracy as the sham that it really is.
Absolutely. And your piece continues to draw parallels between sexualized army propaganda and ongoing documented war crimes, including, of course, sexual and gender-based violence against the Palestinian detainees. How do you see these two, like, in my opinion, borderline schizophrenic two realms, the glossy propaganda and the harsh reality interacting to shape both domestic morale and international perception?
Yeah, I'm not really sure there's any amount of hot babe content that can really make up for the images of starving people or flattened towns or parents carrying the remains of their children around in plastic bags. Israel does seem to be a deeply sick society that is inordinately obsessed with sex and sexualization. It seems to go out of his way to use rape as a weapon, for example. You can bleep this if you want, of course. Palestinians are systematically abused in Israeli prisons. Adnan al-Bursh, for example, who is head of orthopedics at Al-Shifa Hospital in Gaza, was reportedly raped to death by Israeli guards. I also touched on this in the article, but part of the way Israel markets itself to Jews around the world is as one giant sex club, really, on birthright trips, which is a free 10-day vacation that Israel offers to all Jews who pass a screening for their pro-Palestine views to begin with. Authorities there strongly encourage what they call in their literature hormonal encounters, and they understand that losing one's virginity in Israel can create a really strong psychosexual emotional relationship with the state in impressionable young Jewish people. To this end, sex is strongly encouraged, and it's even marketed as a sex vacation. Authorities literally employ good-looking Israeli skanks whose job it is to pop the cherries of visitors. And many of people on these trips have reported feeling strongly pressured into fornication while on birthright. And the reason for this is Israel's demographic problem. In a nutshell, Jews are still a minority in the area, and that's a real problem if you're trying to set up like a Jewish supremacist state, right? The government of Israel knows that birthright alumni are much more likely to move to Israel, and they're 160% more likely to marry a Jewish spouse as well. Another crazy thing that the IDF does, it has these huge sperm banks for its male soldiers. Have you heard about this? You know,
of course, this is a staple. This is this goes hard on the show. It truly explodes in the face of our audience.
Jesus Christ! The common retrieval squads and all that.
It really retrieves a lot of laughs from a serious topic. Sorry.
I mean, if an Israeli soldier is killed in battle, they literally have a squad that go out and extract the sperm from the guy.
I'm gonna join you.
They're like milking their prostate, and that's so their wife can have children with the dead dad.
Yeah.
And apparently
it's
to
insane.
Get there soon enough, the sperm is still usable. And I can only imagine some kid who's gone on birthright and then decides to move to Israel and join the IDF and says, "Sir, how will I serve the homeland, sir?" And the guy, young Yitzhak, we have a special job for you. You will be
got soft hands, brother.
Tracking division, you know.
Brother's got soft hands, brother. If you know what I mean.
Fucking fantastic. And they would probably like pride themselves in how non-socially problematic they are, because only in Israel are the sperm retrieval units exclusively male. In those disgusting backwards Arab countries, they would probably employ females, but we do not subscribe to that sort of binary here in Israel. When we commit genocide and then yank, quite literally, the dead bodies of our soldiers, we make sure that it's done through a gender-neutral, DEI-inclusive manner. Indeed.
Yeah, and they use vegan-friendly leather gloves as well too.
Absolutely, and the packaging as well, and all the freezers for the dead soldier sperm get their energy from solar panels. It's done properly. I mean, to continue, you note that the Gen Z and young American Jews are, quote-unquote, abandoning Israel, pointing to a TikTok problem. Given that IDF-linked influencers like Natalia Fadev have amassed millions of followers before being banned, where do you think the campaign is failing because it's failing? And what does that say about the limits of state-sanctioned, let's call it, sexual soft power? And before you begin, this is a very interesting conversation, guys, than the one that probably you've heard a lot about, that I've made videos about, that we made a podcast episode episodes about, because this is not simply an ideological conversation of how social media works, etc., etc. This is including a very real and researched fact that this is a state-run media operation. So I'm just contextualizing for the listeners how it's different than the additional important context, systematic context that Alan is bringing to the conversation. So, Alan, take it off. Now, everything I keep thinking about jacking off and taking off. It goes back to the goon squads. The goon squads. Yeah. There you go. The good goon squads. That's probably what they should call them. Please.
All right. I'll start now. Try not to finish too early. I mean, I guess this proves that. I mean, you can't.
I love you.
I guess. I mean, does this not prove that you can't always separate the art from the artist? Right. It settles that age-old conundrum, right? Because to be honest, from a marketing perspective, I think it's a really hard sell what they're doing, right? And I don't actually think Fadeev or this goon squad of female IDF soldiers are actually failing exactly. I mean, they're bringing in a large audience and are branding Israel in a different manner. It's just that there's no amount of cute selfies that can make up for hundreds of thousands of slaughtered civilians and entire cities turned into rubble or whatnot. You can't, no matter how hard Israel tries, whitewash an entire genocide with cum. And that's just how it is, Just thinking about this, right? You're a branding expert. How would you go about trying to, the ultimate branding challenge and brainstorming how we would market Israel better? How would you do it?
I mean, at that point, I would do what the other aspect of Hasbara does, which is beat you senseless until you stop protesting in the name of Palestine, which they've been doing on American campuses for a long time. But yeah, long term, you cannot out-PR a genocide. You can, though, silence as many platforms as possible, and there's plenty of obviously unsubstantiated reports that post shutdown and restart of TikTok, there's a lot less content coming from Palestine that's being shown on the screens of non-Palestinians. The rhetoric has shifted, so even in social media platforms, it's already being done to an extent. Even though we will need time to get data that substantiates this. But when it comes to, this is why all of your articles are so brilliantly linked. But when it comes to mainstream media, etc., I would buy it. I would proceed to purchase it and just then never talk about it. That's it, literally, which is, for example, when we talk about Paramount and so on, which is what they're doing. So yeah, it's not that much about what you're supposed to do in these types of campaigns. This is literally what you learn in marketing school. There's different when you're trying to get a new audience, and it's different when you fucked up and you're trying to do PR cleanup. Right now, they're doing cleanup, and cleanup usually is stopping the spread. It's spread to wherever it's spread. Right? The pro-Palestinian crowd is going to be pro-Palestinian forever. It's just important to not give them actual power to do anything about it domestically in whatever country they're from, number one. And number two, stop it from spreading further through classic division tactics. So yeah, that's what they're doing. And there's not really anything else that they can do. I'm answering my own question. When you're running PR to stop people from talking about a bad thing, it's very important that you stop doing the bad thing. But when it's a genocide campaign, to stop doing the genocide, you have to finish the genocide. Yeah. So, and by finish, we all know what that implies. Yeah.
That's interesting you say that, because I did another article looking at where the Israeli government was spending its money on its gigantic, as you said, what was it, $150 million foreign PR budget. And I found that they were really spending big in the UK, in France, in Germany, Italy, Greece. But some of the countries that they didn't spend a penny in were Spain and Ireland, which, of course, are the two Western countries that are most prominently pro-Palestine out there. So clearly a decision has been made somewhere in the Israeli government that those two countries are lost causes, and they're trying to shore up their support, as you were suggesting, Nick, by telling us Iran is terrible, or maybe by, marketing Israel as this LGBT friendly paradise, even though gay marriage is illegal there, as is interracial marriage, or sometimes it markets itself as a vegan paradise as well, even though Israelis consume more chicken than any other country per capita in the world, and Palestinians are twice as likely to be vegan as Israelis or Jewish Israelis in Israel as well. So, I mean, the contrast between marketing and reality is couldn't be greater, and so many examples when we could talk about Israel.
Absolutely. They like the pitch is, the product is so different to the pitch that the contradictions just start screaming at the potential consumer, which in this case is the potential person that embraces Zionism. And with a settler colonial project, to repeat what you confirmed and I said earlier, there's no Native Americans. I mean, they still exist, obviously, but there is no massive PR campaign for the decolonization of America because the Native Americans are dead, right? And the great massive campaigns for the liberation of the Palestinian people are going to be killed when the last Palestinian is killed, or the top 95%. That's the end goal of every settler colonial project, because without addressing that contradiction of the ethnicity, which does not want you to treat them as seventh class citizens, to address that contradiction, you address it with a knife and with a bomb and with a noose. But not to. Sorry.
What about? I was just thinking when you're talking about. I mean, one big group that they could try and brand themselves is towards that sort of young male, the Andrew Tate crowd, like the Manosphere. They could be like Israel, more like Hisrael, and it's all about marketing Israel as a place where men can be men and women know their place. That might work.
Yeah, but it wouldn't work because of the contradiction that they have to be non-pro-Palestinian Jewish people. So it would immediately fall. Get it? Like it's not bros can be bros as long as they're circumcised. Like that's immediately going to fall through in the manosphere, right? It is going to go back to their anti-Semitic tropes and so on. But please, JT, take us to the next article before we actually think up a logical Israeli
solution,
PR campaign. One would call it. Oh no!
Someone from Mossad is listening to this, so we can't give them too many ideas.
Absolutely.
Right.
You need to employ Ugoplink directly if you want that kind of content.
They're like goon squads, guys. We gotta call them goon squads now.
This is all your fault, Hugo. Well, we'll go back to our other friends from this episode, move away from Israel for a sec, and talk CIA again. Another one of your recent articles.
There's a difference? Sorry.
I know. You're exactly right, yeah. The CIA built hundreds of covert websites. Here's what they were hiding. This one was very interesting to me and kind of weird. So this article talks about some of the other bullshit they got up to from the early 2000s through the mid 2010s-ish. Apparently, the intelligence agency created nearly 1,000 fake websites to facilitate communication between spies. So what did these sites look like? And more importantly, why would they choose the medium of like fake chat rooms or fake blogs or whatever to share sensitive information?
Oh yeah, I love this story because it combines two of my favorite subjects, which is the media and the CIA failing. So just perfect for me. I guess if you were on the internet like 10, 20 years ago, it was the golden era of small websites before we all got funneled into about 5 different places. And if you were on the web back then, there's a chance that some of your favorite blogs were actually founded and run by the CIA. And that's because the agency maintained this vast network of at least 885 known websites in dozens of languages about all manner of subjects, including Star Wars fan sites, message boards about the Rastafari religion, and a fan site dedicated to all things Johnny Carson, the US comedian and late night talk show host. The reason they did this was not so much to spread disinformation, but to provide portals for their informants to contact the CIA anonymously. If you visited these sites and typed in a special password into the search bar, it would open up a login field where informants could pass data and intel to Langley, Virginia, without being seen. And if anyone checked your search history, they'd just see you visited some innocuous-looking fan site, and it wouldn't arouse suspicions, right? Or I mean, at least that's what the CIA thought, because they actually made a number of really bad errors which led to their entire network of informants being caught in some cases. Firstly, the worst mistake they made was purchasing the hosting space for dozens, if not hundreds, of these sites in bulk from the same service provider or server space. And that meant the IP addresses of these CIA websites were sequential, which means that in turn, if you discovered one of these fake sites and just did the minimum of amount of digging, you could pretty much find them all. We know all this from a 2022 Reuters article profiling an Iranian industrial engineer turned CIA rat called, what was his name? Gholam Reza Hosseini, I believe. Yeah, Hosseini used IranianGoals.com, which was a site supposedly dedicated to Iranian football news, to send information about Iran's nuclear policy to Langley. But Iran had actually already found out about these websites from a double agent. And because these websites' IP addresses were in sequential order, all they had to do was just wait and just see who would show up to the other ones. And that's how they caught him. And Hosseini was imprisoned for 9 years, and the CIA left him to hang out and dry and has not contacted him since he was arrested, despite his very public pleas for help. From there, because of the mention of Iranian goals in the Reuters article and the sequential IP addresses the CIA used, internet sleuths were able to piece together and archive at least 885 of these websites that were established by the CIA for use by their agents and operatives all around the world. Incidentally, this is also how China managed to bust the entire CIA informant network ring in their country. But they weren't as lenient as Iran, and they just put a bullet in the head of all of these informants that they found. You might have seen some of these articles in top publications like The Atlantic recently, bemoaning how the US is having trouble establishing any kind of informant networks in China. That's why. You might have also seen the new CIA video campaign in China urging disaffected Communist Party
classic.
So, you know, the one, secure a good life by becoming a CIA informant. And this time they don't tell you to go to a website. They tell you to download Signal or download Tor and contact them that way, because of course those two programs were funded and developed by the US national security state itself. But I have written about that, but that's a story for another day. Incidentally, I really like the idea of an informant being caught and just being questioned about their internet habits, and then having to insist that they just really love the Rastafari religion or like the Ninja Turtles or whatever their web portal is. It's like,
they are really looking for a foxy widow in the neighborhood.
I just really like Labubus, okay?
This is unrelated. I mean, tangentially related, but just out of your investigations into this stuff, like with how many apps and communication methods and stuff and internet things that were developed in partnership, at least with U.S. intelligence or some other branch of, the deep state. Is there any way to speak without the concern of somebody getting a hold of your information? Like, I personally have always assumed, like, anytime I'm operating on any device whatsoever, I assume there's a Fed who has access to that. Like, no matter how innocuous the communication is. Would you say that's about accurate?
I think in short, that's accurate. The only way you can be sure that your information is getting passed on and you're not being spied is wear one of those trench coats and meet someone in the park and then say, like, the weather in Leningrad is cold, and then just pass them in a briefcase. That's how you can be sure that you're speaking and you're not being.
That's how Alan does it. That's actually how we scheduled this podcast.
But then you're in the park and there's, I don't know, a LED lamp next to you that is solar powered, but also Wi-Fi router, and they still fucking hear the show.
No, it's the birds.
Yeah, they're listening to you like some Roomba or something that's going around.
My joke is, like, the feds are always going to be listening. You just gotta choose your feds. So I only use Telegram because, like, what the fuck are the Russians gonna do to me? So now the Russians know everything about me, every fetish, every nasty thing I've ever texted fix it and so on. But what the fuck are the Russians ever going to do to me? Because it's that gets offloaded to their servers, and I stay away from the American platforms because of the particular thing that we do for a living. But yeah, I basically pick my Fed, is what I'm saying. That's
good advice.
Yeah, and on a slightly more serious note, that's one, on slightly tangential, but yeah, that's one reason why so many people have been dropping a lot of phones recently and are looking for Chinese-only phones. You know, in the wake of, for example, the Lebanon pager attack, people are like, oh, I don't want my phone to be coming from a Apple or whatever, or a Korean company. I want it from a country I could trust that is not going to pass info into Israel. So yeah, I mean, Chinese companies have been making a lot of cash on people buying up technology from them in the hopes that they'll be slightly safer online.
100%.
Yeah. I mean, I don't blame them. I try to leave my phone at home wherever possible, and like this office, if I'm not like actively working, there's not a robot in here who can hear a dadgum thing I'm doing in here. But it's kind of alarming how much data you can just have pilfered off your person at any given moment. But anyway, back on topic. These fake websites, it wasn't just for like U.S. spies to chat and feel like super spies, right? So how exactly were these sites used to target enemy states as well as the U.S.'s supposed allies?
Yeah, I mean, plenty of these sites were aimed at Russia, China, Iran, Venezuela, and other enemy states. But what is remarkable is how many of them are actually aimed at friendly countries in Europe, clearly implying that there is a huge network of CIA stool pigeons across that continent as well. And unlike the Chinese example, these ones were still very much alive. This shouldn't really surprise too many people, though, because it's well known that the US extensively spied on its allies and allied foreign leaders. You might remember in 2013, for example, it was revealed that the US had bugged the cell phone of German Chancellor Angela Merkel for over a decade, which sparked a huge diplomatic incident. I mean, I can only imagine the CIA agent whose job it was to record Merkel's sex to her husband,
Oh, Jesus Christ.
Tonight I will make love to you in an efficient manner.
Efficient manner, ja. Ich will reform this dick.
Oh, God.
Yeah. But I think this really proves Henry Kissinger's point, his old adage, right? That it may be dangerous to be America's enemy, but it's even more fatal to be America's friend. And what was the other part of the question? These sites weren't really used to influence public opinion in these countries so much, although the US was indeed doing this at the same time. A lot of people might be familiar with Zunzuneo, for example, which was a Cuban app developed by the CIA front group USAID. The plan was for Zunzuneo to take over the Cuban market by offering a really good and cheap service, and then, once it was ubiquitous on everyone's phones, slowly start dripping anti-government propaganda to Cubans until one day it would instruct them to go to a central square and participate in a color revolution. Zunzuneo mysteriously shut down one day, never to return, and we still don't really know why. I was able, however, to find out that the State Department had a secret meeting in Mexico with Jack Dorsey, the founder and then owner of Twitter, where they tried to convince him to buy Zunzuneo and take it over, essentially. After I published an article about Zunzuneo, Dorsey followed me on Twitter, and then I think I sent him a DM politely asking for more info about this, and then he just immediately unfollowed me. So yeah, I don't know about that.
Interesting.
That's crazy. Wow, that's a really, really crazy story.
That's slightly ominous, yeah. Well, do we go back to Israel now? Do I have to talk about another Israel story? I think we do. Let's talk about this one here. Let me pull it up. The rotten apple story. And this one is, as an iPhone user, I'm like, oh, great, now I got to throw this thing away. Dozens of former Israeli spies hired by Silicon Valley giant. And we all know Silicon Valley is crawling with what basically amounts to spies for Israel. So tell us a little bit more about what's going on here. Who are some of these people, and how did they get into such positions in Silicon Valley?
Yeah, well, a great example of this is Rupert Murdoch. Medallion was a commander in the Israeli military and the head of Unit 8200 cybersecurity operations team. For those that don't know, Unit 8200 is Israel's most elite and most controversial unit of its military. It's responsible for all kinds of cyber warfare, including, as we were talking about earlier, the Lebanese pager attack, the AI-driven kill lists that targeted people in Gaza, the facial recognition technology that tracks Palestinians wherever they go. Its agents are also responsible for developing much of the spyware that tracks foreign diplomats, politicians, journalists, human rights activists, and the like. I'm talking about Pegasus and other spyware, of course. Anyway, in December 2023, which was the height of the Israeli slaughter in Gaza, Medallion moves to New York City to become the global incident manager for TikTok and its trust and safety division more specifically. Now, considering what was going on in the world, what sort of global incidents do you think an Israeli intelligence commander was helping TikTok sort out?
Yeah,
I don't think we need to be mathematicians to put two and two together here. But TikTok is far from alone in hiring, quote unquote, former Israeli spies. One investigation I published found that there were at least 99 ex-Unit 8200 agents working at Google alone. And this includes Gabriel Goidel, who's a longtime Unit 8200 commander, who rose to the top and became head of learning at Unit 8200. He led a large team of operatives whose job was to, during Operation Protective Edge, which is the 2014 bombardment of Gaza, to sift through intelligence data to what he said, and I'm quoting from his CV, understand patterns of hostile activities, end quote. Today, Goidel is head of strategy and operations at Google. And, I could go on and list the hundreds of agents I found working at all these places. I mean, I found 166 working at Microsoft alone. And that's probably just the tip of the iceberg, because under Israeli law, it's actually an offense to reveal one's affiliation to Unit 8200. So the only people I found were the people admitting to this in their LinkedIn profiles.
They're flexing on it, yeah. Wow.
And the thing is that, as I said, Unit 8200, the most elite unit in the Israeli military, and it's the centerpiece of the country's tech empire. So many of these individuals that we're talking about certainly have cutting-edge computing skills that are in high demand in Silicon Valley. But at the same time, these agents are also responsible for developing much of the spyware that tracks foreign diplomats, politicians, and journalists and the like. So, in short, their job at Unit 8200 was to hack into global organizations like Google and use backdoors and loopholes to further Israel's ambitions. And so that's why it's so entirely inappropriate for Silicon Valley and its corporations to be hiring these people en masse. They've got to be, it's absolutely crazy that this is considered, unproblematic at all. So in answer to your question, JT, I mean, how did they get there? They got there by being mad freaking spies. That's how they got there.
And some of those positions you mentioned are sound quite important and kind of high up in the company, which is even more alarming. But these are, frankly, these are war criminals. How is it that out of the pool of probably thousands of qualified applicants from around the world, everyone wants to work in Silicon Valley if you're interested in tech, why is it these Israelis from this unit that are getting these positions? Are we coming back to the true believers thing? Are the higher ups at these companies in Silicon Valley ideologically dedicated for one reason or another to the Zionist project? How are they allowed employment in these lucrative businesses and positions? I
mean, they have impressive CVs as well.
I guess.
Facilitating genocide and ethnic cleansing makes you really impressive hacker. Maybe you can come develop dating apps for us.
Jesus, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I guess, some people have looked at this research that I've done and seen a conspiracy, like a massive Israeli infiltration project. But I don't see it like that exactly. I mean, these people, these agents, are being actively recruited by Silicon Valley corporations, and often while they're still in their units in the military. And that's because they are seen as having these elite cutting-edge skills that are required for these Silicon Valley corporations. And as we've been talking about, these companies are so reflexively pro-Israel that their affiliation with one of the most evil, deadly forces in the world isn't really seen as problematic. It's just as if, it wouldn't be seen as problematic in the US to hire an ex-US Marine or an ex-US Navy serviceman. It's no secret that this is happening. They've got this stuff on their CVs. But these big companies, they want to stifle pro-Palestine content or more radical voices on their platform. And that's just the reactionary culture of Silicon Valley. So they go together very well. And so if it is an Israeli infiltration operation, I have to say they're really pushing at a completely open door here.
It's another one of those things, like everything the relationship with Israel, it is so wide-reaching that it's our tech, it's our media, it's the military-industrial complex. I saw, this was a couple of years ago, shortly after October 7th, back when I lived in Texas. I was driving in between Dallas and Fort Worth, so mid-cities. This is, nowhere in particular. A big old billboard that says, Hamas is your problem too. I'm like, why are we putting billboards here in Euless, Texas? This is, it's mind-boggling, and it's fascinating to watch this all develop. And I will be very curious when I am old and not suicided by the CIA, hopefully, to see how this has developed and how the PR war continues, to look back on this very interesting and very weird period between Israel and the rest of the world.
And that's a great transition into the last article of today, which properly targets and talks about Rupert Murdoch, Israel's most powerful supporter, the kind of, to an extent, guy who wrote the book on how to manipulate, how to direct media without nobody being able to tell you that you are directing your media. So, probably a lot of people know, but in the context of your article, my dear friend, can you tell us who the fuck is Rupert Murdoch and how did he get so influential, and why everybody should watch Succession, actually? It's a very good fucking show. Yes.
I guess you could say that Rupert Murdoch's kind of this OG media oligarch of our times, right? And in one of his rare lucid moments, Joe Biden quite recently, well, a couple of years ago now, described Rupert Murdoch as the world's most dangerous individual. He is, in short, an Australian press baron whose media empire spans the globe. He owns more than 100 newspapers. A quarter of all the newspapers sold in the UK, for example, are owned by Murdoch. And in Australia, that number is even higher. He also owns a number of American ventures, including the Wall Street Journal and the New York Post. Undoubtedly, however, it is his creation of Fox News that has been the most influential. And at the risk of sounding like a rad lib, Fox News really is just such a malignant tumor on American society. It's hard to overestimate how much it has broken the brains of generations of Americans. Its tone, its politics, everything about it is a direct reflection of Rupert Murdoch's own personal political outlook. And that's continued even after he recently sold the channel on. That's what he's done. I mean, he's used his media power to push reactionary conservatism all around the world. He is known for enforcing a really strict ideological line at his outlets. An example of this is every one of his 175 newspapers vociferously backed the US invasion of Iraq in 2003. In the UK, he is often cited as the country's most influential individual and is credited with toppling governments and swinging elections. Prime Minister Tony Blair, for example, another great guy, said Murdoch was an unofficial member of the UK cabinet. So this guy could really barely be more influential. And the only good news, I guess, is that he is in his 90s and he hasn't been very successful with social media ventures either. In 2005, you might remember he bought MySpace for over $500 million and promptly watched it fall from being the coolest social media app on the planet to a smoldering pile of trash within like a year and a half. So I guess that's the silver lining with Murdoch.
And the silver lining is really there. I mean, I have to believe it because I do digital media. So that both of you, to an extent, Alan, you're a perfect combination of one of the most traditional media and the fact that the place you put it out on is a digital sphere. But we gotta hope at the end of the day, no matter how subjective we might be, that is the future, and the more it quote unquote democratizes through individual smaller platforms, we will eliminate the overarching hand of corporate market-driven, profit-driven news, media, etc., dominating absolutely every corner of our world. But then again, that silver lining becomes a little bit more dark when you realize and you see that both intelligence agencies, political movements and parties, establishment political movement and parties, and most importantly, corporations are already putting in play lots of different methods through which that can be, that the freedom and that last vestige of, let's call it, the democracy online, to be co-opted back into the cold hand of capital dictated public opinion. And I think that should lead us to, even though it was not in the document, to the concluding remarks of what we do almost every single time with Alan. I'm pretty sure you have a folder somewhere, my dear friend, with your favorite, let's say top 5, but you can go up top 10. I will not limit your goon sesh. Worst, what's the word? JT, help me here. Worst offenders of journalistic bias and ideological shit eating, aka your favorite top 5 worst articles you've seen in a while. And if you, the listener, want much more than top 5, go give this man a follow. You will have entertainment for years. So, Alan, take it away, brother.
So I guess some of these, they're a mixture of terrible headlines or talking about terrible things that are actually happening in the US, which are really accurate headlines, but accurately describing something absolutely insane. The first one comes from CNN Business, and it's titled, Florida debates lifting some child labor laws to fill jobs vacated by undocumented immigrants.
Oh, fucking legendary. The children yearn for the mines.
Of course it's Florida. I mean, that's the only place.
I'm not a big fan of the government, but I'm a big fan of my kids working. I mean,
this
love
is
it.
some, reintroducing child labor to own the libs kind of stuff.
Yeah. That's so funny.
I will lower my child's...
Vacated by undocumented immigrants. So we're talking
it's literally
picking fruit and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, it's literally like, oh, well, ICE have rounded up too many, Salvadorians, so now we got to get 13-year-olds to take their place.
to wield this circular saw. Yeah.
Like, just my message to people, capitalists watching this, you need a reserve army of labor, guys. That's how the economy works.
And the answer is just children. Okay,
that's gonna go so poorly. Oh my God.
It's gonna be,
All right. So this is very different in some ways and very similar in another. It is describing an absolutely insane situation, but this time the headline itself and the take is really, truly out of this world. It comes from the Wall Street Journal, Rupert Murdoch publication, and the title is, "To Save Money, Maybe You Should Skip Breakfast." It's like, this is the business paper saying, poor, have you tried starving, basically.
How about no food, poor, huh? You can't afford 3, how about you only eat 2, motherfucker?
What's that expression? It's the average person is 3 missed meals away from revolution. Like, they're shooting themselves in the foot here. It's like, yeah, you just starve, just don't eat. That's so funny.
I can't afford anything. Have you thought about becoming more enlightened and not needing anything, you fucking consumerist?
This is a great opportunity to lose some weight.
Remember when the Kellogg people were like, hey, don't you know that you can eat cereal for lunch and dinner too? Why only eat it for breakfast? Eat it throughout the day. We understand that young families cannot afford to feed themselves or their children, but Kellogg's is very cheap, so you can eat it 3 times a day. We promise you will die only after 20 years.
Well, that kind of tangentially related to what we've been talking about all day. Kellogg's cornflakes was invented, of course, as like an anti-masturbation device, right? You guys know about this?
What?
Apparently, JT does not. Okay, so the owner of the Kellogg company was an interesting man religiously, and he really wanted to fight this scourge of public indecency, or private indecency, as he called it, and he was trying to find foods that would help lower the libido of his subjects, and he created the most plain tasting nonsense he could, in the thought that this would like lower people's libidos. I mean, I don't know. I haven't seen any studies showing the relationship between horniness and cornflakes, but who knows?
Fascinating. I love weird people who do stuff like that. It's like, you know what? Go off, King. You make those cornflakes for whatever bizarre reason.
Anti-Gooner cornflakes.
Yeah.
We said that sentence August 28th, 2025. I see you have one from the Times of Israel, which is incredible.
This is really a genre that I keep in my own folder. I think I've got about 5 or 6 of these, literally with the same phrasing every time, which the genre of article here is people using the phrase, "we have nowhere else to go" in the title, and then you looking them up, and then you find that they're actually American. So, for example, this one is from Menachem Learfield, "We have nowhere else to go," published in the Times of Israel. His bio, when you go to About Me, it says, Rabbi Menachem Learfield lives in Denver, Colorado with his wife Sarah and their 5 energetic children. I found other ones talking about they live in Atlanta, they live in London, UK. It's an absolute staple of the genre. And the more you search for it, if you look nowhere else to go and then look for headlines, I would say at least 50% of the time, they actually do have somewhere else to go. In fact, they're there already.
That's so funny. It's the population that perhaps has the most people with the most places to go on Earth is Israel. Like, what percentage of them hold multiple passports? Like, of course you have somewhere else to go. It's too on the nose.
Yeah. Actually, the person who more or less invented, well, we can say popularized the phrase was Golda Meir, who was the former head of state of Israel. But of course, she was born in Kiev and she grew up in Milwaukee. So, I mean, she also had quite a few places to go as well.
Places to go.
No.
Amnesia. Woo.
Yeah, I like this one from Axios. I hope you're looking at it right now, which is from 2024, last year, almost a year ago. In fact, exactly a year ago. Cancer poses a growing problem for employers. Will somebody please think of the poor employers?
There's a tumor on top of a tumor. The cancer is causing cancer problems.
Oh my God. Just the framing of these, like, cancer poses a growing problem. Yes, I agree. Specifically for the people who have to deal with the people who have cancer. Come on.
Specifically for the people that deny other people cancer treatment. What?
It reminds me of one of my all-time favorite headlines, which was "What nuclear war would look like for investors." Which
Yeah.
It's literally the comic book with the people in rags sitting around the campfire. It's like, yeah, we destroyed the world, but for a brief shining moment, we created a lot of value for shareholders.
Exactly. All right, I can't go without leaving you some of the choice, most insane stuff from the British press as well, because as we all know, as bad as the American press is, the British press is just so much worse in so many ways.
Impressive.
And this is like the absolute standard article, which is written and published maybe 5 to 10 times a day in the broadsheets there. And this is a great example of it, which is title, "I inherited my parents' house. Now I'm classed as a second homeowner." And this is an article about a woman who now owns 2 houses and has to pay the extra tax on it. And she is complaining about this, how it's so unfair that she is classed as a second homeowner because she now owns 2 homes.
That's remarkable. Come on.
You gotta get like Alan's humor. He just fucking crops this. He posted it, and it's like, "I inherited my parents' house. Now I'm classed as a second homeowner." And Alan's only comment is, "Yes, that's because you own 2 homes." Like that's
Hope that clears it up.
Well, that clears that up. And with that being said, ladies and gentlemen and enemies, thank you very much for having joined us today. Before we slowly log off, I want you to do 2 two things. I want you to check out Alan's work, which will be linked everywhere in the description. Any closing statements, Alan? Please do hit us with them.
It has been a pleasure and an honor, as always, gentlemen.
Hey.
Right back at you, my friend. Right back at you. And you guys at home listening, I mean, you could do a funny thing. You could make us second homeowners by subscribing over on Patreon or one homeowners. You know,
Yeah.
you could make us one homeowners. Mine's owned by the bank. For different tiers, you get many different things, but the most important thing is that you support the show and allow us to continue doing this as independently and as often as we manage to do. You get many different bonuses, every single episode early, up to 2 exclusive episodes a month, hangout sessions with the OG members, and access to our now massive and incredibly wholesome Discord community, as well as many other shit, and so on and so on. So go to the links, check out Alan's work, and after that, throw a lot of money at us, because I would like to have I would like to pay property tax on at least 6 homes in the next 6 months. Thank you, Alan, for joining us. Thank you, JT, for tolerating me and my awful Patreon pitches. And with that being said,
This has been the Deprogram. I'm JT.
I'm your Gopnik.
And I'm Alan. Goon Squad out.
You fucking cunt.